Okay, good afternoon. So welcome to PSR 2025 crash course. This is Margadarshan. So here today we'll largely discover what is the trend of the exam and what we'll be doing in part of the course and how do we approach the PSR questions for the upcoming mains exam. So largely one we have to know like the core idea of any kind of course is that it's related to increasing one's scores. Get a point. So what many always think is that increasing in scores is always related to increasing in knowledge or increasing in content. Basically because we all base ourselves based on our own ideas that why might have scored less in my previous attempt. So reasons can be plenty. Some might feel that okay fine, my content is not good, or some might feel that I have not written a lot of answers, or some might have also written a lot of answers but yet the scores are not increasing. So one thing is that you can say knowledge is needed to a certain extent because nobody can score well. You can say that I'll score well only based on my knowledge part. That is not there. So you need some basic knowledge. So let us think you have read the syllabus once, complete entirety of the syllabus. And let us think you have read 80% also. Some parts of the syllabus are open-ended where you can say that okay, I'll value add towards the end. But here you can say scores are not just dependent upon how much knowledge you have. So end of the day it also depends upon what you have written on your paper, that what you bring on your paper. For that what is more important is basically the answer writing. I am telling approach. Answer writing is there, but also there should be an approach about how do I write answers. So this is where what you can say, in my experience, I can say most of the students go wrong. There are two kinds of students. One, they will write, okay, I'll write a lot of tests. So logically think, just by writing a lot of tests, it does not mean your answer writing is improving. So based on each test, okay, fine, is your approach improving? Okay, what is an yardstick for a good answer? Because see, many times we might be also wrong in our answer assessment, right? It is not that it is perfect, that whomever we have given more marks in test series, they are also scoring more marks in exam. Actually, it doesn't happen that way. There are ample cases where people who have scored less in test series actually have done very well in exam. So obviously there is no clear-cut yardstick. This is the only way of writing an answer. This is the only way of writing a good answer. But we can approach with some kind of common factors. Okay, how do I approach the syllabus? And PSIR is a paper where you can say you can't use the same approach in both papers, or you can also not use the same approach in two parts of the same paper. So I mean, when you look at PSIR paper 1 part A and paper 1 part B. So obviously my approach of writing an answer or my approach of going through this is not common to part A and part B. So how I write a question in part B need not be the same way how I approach a question in part A. So part A is bit more theory based. Part B, it's not only theory based, it is also bit more application based. So to give you an example, so let us think last year's question paper where they have asked a question, environmental movements in India have led to what you can say evolution of environmental legislations, something critically analyzed. Okay, something like that. I'm not exactly telling there's a question, but the question was something like that. Environmental movements in India have led to enactment of environmental legislation, critically analyze, comment, etc. So now what happens in these kind of questions, why sometimes students will struggle to answer? Now their mind works in what way? Okay, let us see what is there in my notes. Okay, first let me collect all these scholars over there. One idea will be it's a scholarly approach. I have to write 5-6 scholars for me to get marks. Okay, you can bring a scholarly approach or theoretical approach, but it should be more organic. So when you read the question there, first the concept of environmental movements where in India. They are saying a thesis or a statement saying that environmental movements in India have led to environmental legislations. So okay, one angle you are going to write or start, you can say that what is an environmental movement? Then you write that in India, how environmental movements have led to enactment of legislation. So you can give example, after the Chipko movement, what was the legislative changes that happened? Get a point? Or you can also say with the Kudankulam issue, nuclear protest, that how liability agreement was changed. Or you can say that the movements, especially in the tribal land, that how it led to enactment of Forest Rights Act. This is one part you are going to write. But question is not only that, the question is critically analyze. So you can bring a Marxist viewpoint, saying that enactment of these legislations has not led to empowerment of environmental groups, or it has only led to enactment of bizarre legislations with lot of loopholes. So I can also write about what are the loopholes in certain laws. For example, even under Forest Rights Act, if you take the recent study shows that in almost 14 states in India, the law has been not effectively implemented only. Or for example, in India, all environmental movements works within the ambit of nationalism. In that sense, even these laws which has been brought, they work within the ambit of national interest. For example, the government can take away give license for mining projects or line projects, even under Environmental Protection Acts. Third, you need to say that why in India the environmental laws are not so strong, because in India environment is not good politics. Maybe in only some states like Tamil Nadu, you can say environmental issues matters on political issues. So I'll also bring an analysis of pressure groups. Why? Because the environmental groups in India are not as powerful when we compare to Western countries. Why? Because India is still a country that is based on developing country. Here development is more important. So then I'm going to write that even though these laws are there, these laws have to be strengthened. I can also link participatory idea of democracy. People should participate in these things. Getting the point? So here idea is not only that what is there in a book you write or you wrote about Sunita Nara. Some people will write Sunita Nara and new environmentalism. Okay, how you are connecting that to the question? Got the point? Just because you have written about Sunita Narayan and new environmentalism, you are just quoting things inorganically. We say Ratta Marke, you are just putting it. It's not adding any value to your answer. So basically for any answer, you need to have a structure. You need to bring. So that's what I told. For this question, it's not that I'm only writing about, and I brought the role of pressure groups. Again, my political science knowledge will help me to do so. I have to do it. Okay, or you can also look from a point of view of a Marxist point of view, because they say that all the laws that are enacted, it is not always it reflects the interest of all sections of society. There might be a lot of loopholes in those laws. So I do agree that environmental movements in India have led to shape of enactment of certain. I'll give examples for it. But I'll also bring the argument in my question that all these laws that has been enacted are not completely perfect. These laws have been not only shaped by environmental groups in India, these laws have been also shaped by other pressure groups in India. You can give example. For example, when the government brought based on the Kasturi Rangan, Madhav Gadgil report, but later they were forced to bring Kasturi Rangan report because the other developmental pressure groups, they exerted that no, that we need development, we need mining activities. So that's what I told. In part B, it is going to be more applied. You're getting the point. So like many people will also ask the question like, they think like generally in market, what is that? We'll run a crash course because quick bucks can be made, in 10 days we'll finish the course. The idea is that is not of a crash course, of doing the syllabus again. That's why I told crash course will be mainly useful for those people who are writing means, or mainly those people who have completed their foundational program, but they want to develop their approaches about answer writing and writing a lot of previous year questions. Because in part of this course, we'll write a lot of PYQs, or we'll also go to thematics. What are the different themes the question can come? But now let us take the same way, paper 1 part A. Even though I told it is theoretical, but if you observe the trend of the exam in last 2 to 3 years, paper 1 part A, what UPSC is doing, they are making it more applied. So for example, when I wrote the exam back in 2016 or 2017, the questions in part A are more straightforward. Simple. Comment on Plato's philosopher king. Comment on Aristotle's theory of slavery. You are getting mind? But let us think last year's question paper, why many people have scored less in paper 1? Why paper 1 scores have been not so great? I'm not telling not everybody. There are some people in our test series they have scored well, like one fellow scored 152 in paper 1, one girl scored 153 in paper 1. But that is not consistently all people. There are many people who are just scoring 110, 115, 120. Even though this is theoretical matlab, there are some theories. Okay, you read those theories, you need to write about them, and like anybody who has done foundation course of political science will know the approach, thesis, antithesis, and you write synthesis. That is the general idea that will be there. But the problem what they have done last time is that they are making the questions more applied. What is the meaning of more applied? Now let us think, there is a question, Plato as the first feminist. 90% of them will write the answer. Why 90% of the answer? It is there in your notes. Why it is there in your notes? This is a question that was asked previously. A theme. You are ready. Why you are ready? Okay, you have arguments for why you can call him as a feminist. You have also counter arguments why you don't condemn, and then you will take a stand. Why it is ready? Because already you have read it. It's in your brain. So the moment you see the question, in 7 minutes, you are easily able to write an introduction, body, conclusion. But what UPSC is now doing, they are not giving so straightforward questions. They are making it bit more applied. Applied means link 2-3 different concepts, and you have to merge all these concepts and you have to come out with your arguments. Like last time they have asked legitimacy adds a positive value to political authority and obedience. Critically analyze and discuss, or something like that. What they have given? Legitimacy adds a positive value to political authority and obedience comment. The problem what happens here is that some people who have really understood the concept, who are very good in application part, they usually would have done well. Now those people who will start thinking, ये मेरा notes में किधर है? There are certain themes which is there. But here what they have done, one they are speaking about legitimacy, other they are speaking about political authority and obedience. So basically here your understanding should be good, and here your answer should be organic, it should be original. Original in the sense I can't just write what I think, I'll definitely link certain theories, certain concept, but that should be a theoretical organic linkage. So first in my answer I am going to tell what is legitimacy. I am going to define legitimacy. But then they are giving the argument of what? Legitimacy adds a positive value to political authority and obedience. Meaning, if you are able to gain the confidence of people, they will respect the state. People will obey the state naturally. There is no need to use force. So legitimacy is having a positive value. You can link T.H. Green, who said it is the will, not force, is the basis of state. So now you have to give example how legitimacy can add a positive value. So first of all, if the state has to gain legitimacy, it has to perform positive functions. Positive liberals, Scandinavian countries, why these countries enjoy political stability, why these countries enjoy where citizens are naturally obedient towards the state, because here the state has done welfare functions. What T.H. Green says, state should hinder the hindrances. So here in Scandinavian countries like Finland, Norway, Sweden, where they followed the social liberal policies, where the state is providing basic necessities of people, at the same time the state is enhancing the liberty of the individual. Naturally, what happens? Now it is gaining legitimacy, and this legitimacy is adding a positive value to their political authority. But you also have to write, where there is no legitimacy. So if you fail to get legitimacy, take the example of Arab Spring. Take the example of Sheikh Hasina when the government completely collapsed. Why? Because the government, elections were conducted, but the opposition did not participate in election only. So the government did not make any efforts to gain the confidence of the people. When you are only trying to rule the people through use of force, people are bound to rebel, revolt. This I am going to add as an example. But still I can write. I'll now bring a Marxist perspective into my answer. Because I need not always agree with this statement. I'll bring Gramsci, Marx. They don't, because Marxist theories don't believe in the idea of legitimacy. Because they say legitimacy is nothing but what Gramsci says, it is nothing but hegemony, manufactured consent. Need not always it adds up as positive value to political authority. You can manipulate people and create that kind of consent. But nevertheless, one cannot deny that for any state to have, where people should naturally show obedience towards the political authority, that kind of state will have to perform positive functions. That kind of state should hinder the hindrances. That kind of state should address the problem of rising inequality. Otherwise, you lose legitimacy. That is what even Aristotle told ages back, that what? If there is inequality anywhere, it leads to revolution everywhere. So I would have justified my answer saying that how legitimacy is adding a positive value to political authority and obedience. But I had told, now this is not something which might be there in your notes, this is not something which may be there in your book, but in your notes you know what is legitimacy, in your notes you know what is obedience, in your notes you know what is about Marxist theories of legitimacy, in your notes you know about positive liberals. But how do we integrate it and how do we make it more organic? So it's not only about writing, it's also about thinking, it's also about brainstorming, it's also about discussion. Discussion in the sense, it need not be what I am telling is only correct. Now tomorrow this fellow might tell one point, he might tell one point. Why? Because different people can look at the issue different perspectives. So that is what we say collective thinking. So the idea here is not that I will teach you the subject. Most of you know the subject. The idea here is that how do we look at things in different ways? How do we can approach these kind of questions? Now the difference here, when we answer the question on legitimacy and political authority, here at this moment we have the liberty of time. I can take my own time, I can think one full day. Means we have done post-mortem analysis. Post-mortem analysis. Post-mortem analysis is what? After the analysis, okay. Why after the analysis I can sit for half a day and think, then generate points. It will help. What it will help? Tomorrow there is similar themed question. Since my thinking was already developed, points will come quickly. But let us think next year also they give a very new themed question. There is every possibility. But there I should think quickly now within the examination. So if you look at means, it's more about when you say I want to write fast. It's not about your writing speed. It is about your thinking speed. So your thinking speed will not automatically improve. Or your thinking speed, see there is a difference between reading and thinking. What is the difference between reading and thinking? A person will do revision of PSIR. How will do revision? Notes. Now let us think today we will do Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli. You will revise Plato, Philosopher King, Plato, what is that, Education, Plato's Theory of Soul. Everything you will revise. What you are revising, you are just reading what is already there. There is nothing thinking you are doing it. Okay, so what do you mean by thinking? Now when you are reading Plato's Theory of Justice, you will also think, okay, let me see to compare him with Rawls. There might be a question this year they might ask, compare and contrast Plato's idea of justice with Rawlsian idea of justice. So if you have forethought, if you have made a comparison, at least you'll be in a position to write something within that 7 minutes. But let's think you're a person who has just read Plato, plus read Rawls, and there in 7 minutes or let us say 10 minutes, you have to write an answer. What will happen now? Because lack of time, you don't have time to think. Obviously, you'll just write what comes to your mind. And now that you might write some points, but it might be not so effective. You're getting the point. So that's what, see, the idea here, we have to do a lot of brainstorming. Brainstorming means do interconnection between the concepts. That is what he is doing in the exam. What UPSC is trying to do, he is doing a lot of interconnection with the concepts. The trend had started before also, but it is now increased a bit. Before also it is there. Before, the component of the number of interlinked questions were slightly less. But now he has increased the number of interlinked questions more, especially in part A. Okay, it's not something, it was not there at all. So if I think if you go back to 2015 or 2016, Machiavelli, he has asked, Machiavelli is the forerunner of behavioralism. Comment. You are observing, like in Aristotle question, what he has asked, to what extent do you agree Aristotelian ideas have shaped the modern day constitutional governments? You get in mind? These are all what? They are not just asking core theories of Aristotle. They are linking Aristotelian ideas and the idea of constitutional democracy. They are linking Machiavelli and behavioralism. Get in mind? So it was there before also. But what they are doing, especially in these questions like democracy, equality, power, authority, they are not like, unlike before, they are not asking direct. Like before, they would have asked, comment on the class perspective of power, comment on the elitist perspective of power. But now what he is doing is intermixing. Intermixing in the sense, it's not only power you read separately, everything should be interlinked. Equality, power, democracy, justice, because these are all interlinked concepts. Na? It's not that these are all separate concepts. When you speak out justice, you speak out rights, you speak out equality, you speak out power distribution. So if you take last year, they asked one more question like this. What is the question they have given? The democratic citizenship and liberty, it is dependent upon economic equality. Critically analyze. What is the question? Democratic citizenship and liberty are dependent upon economic equality. Now critically analyze. Problem what happens here to the students is that they know suddenly they can't, or some might suddenly struggle to think within that given time. But if you are a person who has largely practiced the approach, okay, of interlinking, there is nothing doing it. If you simplify the question in simple terms, first thing that will come to my head, or what will come to your head the moment you see the statement? What will come to your head? Tell me some person you can link, some person's quote you can link. Being a student of Indian Constitution, being a student, Ambedkar, what is the quote? Ambedkar said, political democracy is meaningless without social and that's the summary of the question. That's the gist of the question. So obviously, if you break down that statement, you can easily make a assessment or a guess that which perspective would have told this statement. Largely, it will be positive liberals and the socialists. Because for neoliberals and classical liberals, their belief system is different. They say equality and liberty are not interrelated. Acton, Tocqueville, they say what? If you go to achieve equality, you have to sacrifice liberty. Okay, that's a theoretical basis to approach this question. But I am not telling you can just write theory. You have to also give practical examples in your answer, or I would give in my answer. Get a point? First, I'll explain in my answer what is the idea of democratic citizenship. Briefly, it's a 20-marker question. I can explain what is the idea of democracy. Everybody should have equal voting rights. Everybody should be treated as equal citizens. Everybody should have equal access to public positions. Everybody should have equal liberty. Right? What do you mean by liberty? Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to form association. But what Ernst Barker says, if liberty is not qualified by the principle of equality, neither liberty will be meaningful, neither equality will be meaningful. Now I have to give examples for it. I would say, example, in India, we can see that how economic inequalities has manifested into political inequalities. Example, according to Association of Democratic Reforms report, 88% of India's MPs are crorepathi's. Or secondly, we can also say, when there is economic inequalities, democratic citizenship means all citizens should be equal. That also includes gender. So when you look at women representation in Indian parliament, it is below 15%. One reason is social structure, which is patriarchy. The other reason also money power, because Indian elections require muscle power and money power to win elections. So we can say some citizens are marginalized. Why? Because they lack economic power. And what did Marx say in his base and superstructure? That superstructure is nothing but reflection of the base. You can write that, you can link that. Or you can say in India, the prisons, what are there? Out of every 4 prisoners, 3 prisoners are under trials. And we look at 80 to 90% of the under trials, the Indian citizens who are there, they all come from economically weaker sections of society. So, for any idea of democratic citizenship, and when we say any idea of liberty should be exercised, we should also speak about economic equality. Hence, we can say here what social liberals said, there should be balance between liberty and equality. The state should not only limit itself to performing the role of what protecting liberty, it should also make efforts to what bring some degree of economic equality, perform positive functions. Same Bing T.H. Green, should hinder the hindrances. Only then the state will enjoy greater legitimacy. Simple, na? Ultimately what happens is, have I answered the demand of the question effectively? Here nobody is going to sit and count how many scholars you have written. It's not a competition who will write more number of scholars in their paper. It's an exam where we bring our political science knowledge based on my understanding. Yeah, I have written certain scholars, I have written certain perspectives. I picked it up, it's not from one topic, I picked it up from liberty, I picked it from ideologies, So basically my answer is what more? Organically, and I have given examples also for the same. Because I am not disagreeing with that statement. If you want, I will start in writing, Starting means I will write the perspective of neoliberals or the perspective of Acton and Tocqueville, who argued that what? That liberty is independent of equality. But later in my arguments, I am going to nullify that argument. And then I am going to bring arguments saying that why there should be economic equality, for there to be democratic citizenship, why there should be economic equality, for there to be equal liberty to all. So when we say liberty, liberty should also be equally applied to all. And today liberty is also dependent upon economic equality. Let us say you have liberty, means freedom. You want to become a doctor, but it also depends upon whether you have the money power to access the medical education. There is nothing wrong, you can give examples. They are not like you only have to write what Joseph Stiglitz said, etc. There are perspectives, you have to substantiate the perspectives based on the examples what you see. Got the point? So in conclusion, if I want, I can write an effective conclusion which would have prepared beforehand. Ernst Barker says that what? Social justice is like a thread which is based on the beads of equality, liberty and fraternity. Hence, for any kind of democratic citizenship and liberty, economic equality is very essential. Or other alternative conclusion, what Ambedkar said, that political democracy is meaningless without social and economic democracy at its base. Right. So now this boils down to what? This boils down to, it does not matter how much you have read, what source you have read. Again, when some people are worried about source, any source, it will be more or so same, right? It can't be drastically very different. Maybe one or two extra dialogues you might have. So what some people blindly they worried about, they are blindly worried about value addition. They're mad about value addition. You know, I'm going to add more value, add more value. See, human mind has limited capacity to retain things what we read. It's not like a computer that whatever you read, you're going to produce. So end of the day, in that 7 minutes or in that 2 hours, 3 hours paper, what you write, you're just going to write what subconsciously you know. No matter how much you have read and go, if it is not retained subconsciously, it is not going to come on the paper. Got it? So basic approach here is that what? One basic reading or revision of the topic. So when I start a topic, we'll do the basic revision, not detailed. This is not a class to explain everything. If I do Plato, I will tell what are the major ideas of Plato. What are the key quotes you have to remember? Who are the people praising Plato? Who are the critics of Plato? Why? Because that I'll specifically read. I want to make my answer different from others. Maybe others will not add specifics. I will add specifics. What kind of specifics? I'll add. If there is somebody who I want to defend Plato, I'll write Levinson in his book Defense of Plato. If I want to criticize, I'll write Karl Popper in his book Open Society and Its Enemies. He called Plato as the enemy of open society. Some quotes which are required for the exam. Quotes you can know, no law or ordinance is mightier than the knowledge of thing. The world will not rest from its evil till either kings or philosophers until kings learn the art of philosophy or philosophers become kings, the world will not rest from its evils. Rousseau, Plato's Republic is the best treatise ever written on education. But I'll have to know all these, where to use, when to use, under what context to use. It's not just reading them and keeping it. So once we do the basic reading, we'll also link here where this can be utilized, where this can be linked. That is one thing. Second thing, we are going to look at all this based on what? PYQs which has come on that particular topic. And here also it's not necessary for you to answer all the PYQs, because you can group the PYQs under themes. If they ask state is individual writ large, and if they ask Plato's idea of justice, it is almost one and the same. The answer is not going to be any different. So I don't need to write two times that. So I have to look at PYQs to different themes. And we'll also look into possible new themes that can be asked. We can explore how we can build based on the previous year questions, how they are asking. We can say let us say one year they would have asked comparison between Rawls and Ambedkar. They can also ask Rawls and Gandhi. Right? Maybe 1 year they will ask compare the Indian political thought with the Western political thought. Can be asked. Right? Or they can ask Plato's ideas of justice with Rawlsian idea of justice. Got the point? So, if you ask me, if you are conceptually good, okay, and if you are very good in interlinking matlab, when I read Plato, it does not mean that I only have to keep Plato as a thinker. I have to link Plato, I can link him in democracy, and link him in justice. I can link him in feminism. Get a point? There are many areas where I can link Plato's ideas, Plato's arguments. Or when I write about organic theory of state, one of the proponent of organic theory of state is Plato. There are many areas where I can interlink Plato. Got it? So that will also look into what are the possible interlinkages we can build with the other parts of the syllabus. And the fourth component will be live answer writing. Means on day to day, whatever topics we do, at least we have to write 2 to 3 answers. Because it should become an habit. It's not only I'm learning the approach, I'll also have to know. See, some people what they will do, they'll only listen. You might get an idea. But as we say, you won't become a good swimmer by just watching somebody else swim. Seeing swimming, doing swimming are two different things. So some people what they think, I will look at topper's answer script. I will also write good answers. Looking is very different. Any day originality is originality. It's, you look at a topper answer, you have to get an idea. You don't look at a topper exactly to write like him. It's not required also. You can take ideas. You need to have your own uniqueness. So when we look at answer writing is not, see what many people think, writing more number of tests, my answer quality will improve. So I think being a political science student, you'll also have to look at what factors will contribute to a good answer. You're getting a point. When you make an assessment, it's not only based on how many number of tests you have written. That might be one factor. But there are other factors will be also play. One, your conceptual understanding. It doesn't mean that you're just blindly writing. You're not working on getting conceptual clarity. So it does not mean writing more answers will automatically lead to better answers. You also have to work on your conceptual clarity. When you write those answers, you have to sit and reflect back. Okay, have I answered the demand of the question? Am I be able to answer within the given time limit? See, if I give you half an hour time, half a day time, and tell think about Plato and Rawls, 100% you will think you will bring points. In reality, in actual exam, that is not the case, right? In actual exam, you have to write it within the given time. So there are many facets to answer writing. Writing tests is one angle to it. Second thing is that, okay, how do I know what I'm writing is correct or wrong? How do I assess it? Okay, is my answer answering the demand of the question? Okay, my approach, is it correct? I don't know, because approach for paper 1 part A, approach for paper 1 part B might not exactly be similar. So that is where we say not only writing answer but also working on the answer writing approach. So both are interdependent. Means once you know the approach, practice it more. It's not blind practice. You are trying to employ this approach. Okay, fine. Am I trying to get hold of it? It depends upon individual to individual. Some individual might pick it up very quickly. Some individuals will take some time to get used to it. Why get used to it? It's like when you do CSAT, right? I think when in class, when the teacher will do CSAT, I'm getting answer. But the moment when I go back home and independently take the question, I'm not knowing how to apply. Why I'm not knowing how to apply? Because I'm only replicating what the teacher is saying, but I am not understanding the essence of it. So when a new question comes, a new theme comes, I'm not able to think. I'm just reproducing the thinking of what somebody else has said. So your luck will work out if the same question comes in the exam. But in reality, if you take UPSC, you can't expect that all the questions what we give in a test series will come in the exam. No rule, no, that nobody can say that 80% of my questions will come in the exam. Democracy only might come, but they might have asked. See, randomly they might give a question, right? Democracy is not a Western idea. Comment. No, comment. So now everything comes into my head. What shall I read? I've read so much about democracy. Nothing to be scared. Simple approach. Who might be saying that argument? Why there might be saying that argument? So I will not start with the argument of democracy is a Western idea. I'll start with the argument that that the liberal scholars, the Western scholars always have claimed that what democracy arose with the rise of political modernization that happened in West, and democracy is an export of the West to the other countries. That is the claim. I am going to rebut that claim by using arguments of Amartya Sen. Simple, Amartya Sen, you write your own points. Simple, tell Amartya Sen told in ancient Vedic period, there were democratic institutions in India, Sabha, Samiti, Vidhata. Basavanna's Anubhava Mantapa is considered as one of the first world's parliament. Even in many African societies, if you take in tribals, they do have democratic decision making. Or even in Chinese Confucian philosophy, there are cases of democratic values included. So hence, the argument that democracy is a Western idea is far stretched. Maybe we can agree with the argument that the liberal parliamentary model of democracy might have originated with the Western scholars such as J.S. Mill, John Locke, but democracy has multiple facets to it. Democracy is a very old idea. It has existed in ancient Indian texts as a value. I'll end my answer there. Randomly this question came. So there is nothing for me to be tensed or nothing for me to be confused saying that I don't know, it is not there in my notes, it is not given. They expect you to write. They expect you to use your knowledge what you have read. Yeah, basic things you can, that's what if you've done your basic study, you'll know about Amartya Sen's argument. You can write, na. So this is how I would have structured my answer. Got it? So that's what I told. Success is not, score is not based on which material you have read, which notes you have read. Okay, any standard notes you have read, you have to know how to use it effectively. You have to know how to structure it. What is the structure? The moment you listen to the question, in your brain, that imprint should come. Okay, this is what I am going to write. When you won't be able to write, when you don't get that structure. What do you mean by not getting the structure? You will start writing democracy, Western India, suddenly you will go somewhere else, you will write something else. Understood? So the flow of the answer should be crystal clear. So how I am going to start my answer? I am going to start my answer with a claim. Certain Western scholars are claiming that what? Democracy is a creation of the West. Democracy is an export of the West to the other parts of the world. Democracy has taken birth with the Western political modernization. Am I going to say that this claim or this thesis which is there, it is far stretched. It is a Eurocentric view. Post-colonial scholars, people like Amartya Sen, they disagree with this view. I am going to explain why, how. I am going to give examples that how democracy as an idea has existed in many societies even before it emerged in the West. My answer is done. But however, I would suggest that there are many variants of democracy. We should not narrowly understand democracy only through the liberal idea of democracy. Got it? Or you can bring the idea of postmodernists. This is nothing but a meta narrative. So you are using here only many theories or theoretical linkage or scholars what you told. So what is problem with many people is that they don't utilize the knowledge what they have to write an exam. Now they go for what? Dumping more knowledge. For the mind, your brain should not work in that. Okay, this is given in which book? Maybe let us think it is given some foreign author book, it is given. No, you can't tell I'll sit and study the whole book. Got the approach? So one is that what? We are going to crisp reading of what are required for means. Second, we are going through what? PYQs, going through a lot of PYQs. Then we are going to what? Possible themes that can be asked. And fourth one is what? answer writing approach, because we need to have introductions, conclusions, dimensions ready, examples ready. Simple, na? You might think you're going to write an example in automatically in the exam. That is not going to happen. Simple. This is what is required to score well in the examination. This you need to, what you can say, work on it. This you need to implement what you write in your tests to check whether what you are thinking, what you are doing brainstorming, is it possible for to write within that given time in the actual exam question paper. Simple. You should not be under any FOMO. What is FOMO? Fear of missing out. See, many people what they'll do for IR, randomly they'll start reading so many things. No. Part B, 2B, go back to previous year questions. Almost all the questions are a reflection of the current events, major events, not minor events. PSIR part 2, that is IR 2B, is not like GSIR. Questions what here come, it's more conceptual. They might ask you about 21st NAM summit. All you have to know is that what is the development that has happened. Rest analysis remains the same. It remains, there is nothing big deal, na? Same, why India is one argument, why India should continue with NAM. The realist argument that, NAM is an outdated mode. Today India has shifted towards what you can call as multi-alignment. Same to same. Only one thing I have to know is that the new NAM or new NAM summit, what were the major outcomes? So that's what for IR you don't need to sit everything. You need to just know last 1 year ka current affairs. Okay, what are the major areas question can come, and you have to prepare in a question and answer format instead of reading everything to it. Simple. India Pakistan now issue happened. Now let us think what are the probable areas question can come. Indus Water Treaty. Structured way I have to know. India conducting surgical strikes. Okay, what is the outcome of it? To analyze and see. Forget, sir, I don't know scholars. Just keep 2 scholars, that's enough now for every introduction, right? Shashi Tharoor in his book Pax Indica calls India and Pakistan as brother enemies. India-Pakistan's relationship has worked in a zero-sum game. Now there is a shift in Indian foreign policy, what we call Doval's doctrine, which was earlier it was purely defensive policies. Now they are moved towards offensive defense. What is the outcome of it? Again, you have 2 perspectives there. Positive, negative implications. See, it's simple, but what people will unnecessarily try to do here, dump and do a lot of readings. Simple, you read any article also, there will be nothing more than these aspects. So at least I have to identify those areas where question can come. I need to figure it out where it can come. So you can say now Arctic region is gaining strategic significance. India is also now observer member in Arctic. So tomorrow they can ask a question on Arctic area that critically analyze geostrategic importance of art or melting of Arctic. How this will lead to global, I have to know from Indian point of view, global point of view, balance of power, how it is going to alter. So that's what I told. For especially this paper 2, part B, we have to not sit and read everything. We have to read in more of question and answer format. What are the probable areas question will come? And if you see in the common themes in going, every year they've asked one question on South Asia, SARC, why SARC is lagging behind, why trade is not promoting. Same, they're asking in different formats. India's neighborhood first policy, they have directly or indirectly asked. NPT, CTBT, every alternative year, same thing they're asking. Should India sign NPT? Why India has not signed NPT? What is the implication of India signing NPT? Permanent membership, same thing they're asking. Why does India deserve a permanent member? Will India get a permanent member? Or should India become a semi-permanent member? Same theme, different angle. Right, in 2016 they asked what? India's permanent membership in UN Security Council, is it a reality or a pipeline dream? Comment. Last year what they asked, do you think India should become a semi-permanent member in UN? Now here again you don't worry about, sir, I don't know any scholars here. where they are asking, write any scholars. If you know, you link them. Otherwise, you bring your analysis. Got it? Got the point? But you have to be thorough with your part A concepts. Part A you need to link with part B. Part A you would have read realism, liberalism, feminism, social constructivist approach, postmodernist approach, national interest, balance of power, collective security. Many concepts you have read now. That concepts we need to apply and analyze. So when they ask about South Asia, I have to look at from national interest point of view of India. I have to look at from balance of power, that how the power is operating within this region. What is the possibility of building a collective security organization in South Asia? They might ask. I am telling you, two dynamic question how they can come. Critically analyze whether it is possible to build a security alliance on the lines of NATO within South Asia. I can guarantee you this any book or no book can answer. Purely if you have understood well, if you have analyzed well, whether you know scholars, you don't know scholars, you can write. So I will make a comparison of NATO. NATO emerges from Europe and America. SAARC is South Asia. So my argument, it is difficult. Why it is difficult? One, these are all prismatic societies. Still nationalism is at peak. Second one, there is unresolved border issues. Whereas in NATO, most of their border issues are resolved. They have gone into an era of collective security. They have a common external enemy, that is Russia. Here there is no common external enemy, there is a lot of common internal enemies. Here there is America, which acts as a binding factor. Here India is not playing the role of a binding factor. Why? Because India itself has disputes with almost all these countries. And moreover, the role of China, the emergence of China. That is what one of the scholars he said. Today South Asia does not have only one sun. A second sun has risen. And need not all these planets will revolve around one sun. Now these planets are also being attracted towards the other sun. Security dilemma. See, it's easy, it's not difficult. So suddenly you do not feel like I have not read this topic. Compare and contrast. Now you have read comparative politics, you have read structure of the societies, you have read political systems here. So in NATO, one of the precondition to become a NATO member, you have to be a democracy. So NATO has countries which are all stable democracies. They have a common set of political values. But in South Asia, there is no common set of. India is the only democracy which has survived. All other countries are collapsed as military coups. So we say in Pakistan, it is the military which has a state. Hence my answer would be that it be too idealistic to expect that South Asia overnight it will develop a common military army. But however, potential and need is there. That I will argue. Potential need is a common terrorism problem, piracy problem. But why it can't happen? So my viewpoint is more based on realism. Difficult in South Asia to build a common security organization on the lines of NATO. So when you are able to write all the answers very organically without on the spot, you have to be very good with your theoretical knowledge. Got an idea? So I'm holistically telling how questions might come in the exam, how we need to approach, and what we'll be doing here. Got it? So this is a basic idea of what will be there in this crash course in that regard. So largely it will be 3 hours every day. So I think I'll need around 20 to 22 days to cover the entire syllabus. And as I told, here we'll also interlink. What do you mean by interlink? We don't do, like some people had asked, sir, give me the schedule of which day what we are doing. So I don't believe in that kind of thing. Why? Because we will interlink. What do you mean by interlink? When I do feminism, or when we discuss feminism in ideology topic, questions now are coming in such a way that I just don't limit myself to the part A knowledge. I can also link movements in India. I can also link gender justice at global level. I also link feminism in international politics. Means I will use knowledge interlinked. But when it's a part A question, depending upon the question, I'll see. Because when it's a part paper 2 question, largely they would have asked gender from a global level. But still, I can use my knowledge, what I have gained in part A, also in part B. Like Hobbes, what we read, it does not mean Hobbes is only reading in part A. Hobbes also comes in realism under international politics. Why? Because he is one of the forerunners of realism school of thought. Point, because what Hobbes described the state of nature, when you see the actual world politics in that regard, world is also like a state of nature. There is no common authority. Now you might say, no sir, there are international laws, international organizations. Link what Hobbes said, covenant without swords are nothing but words. Or when you write a question on DPSP, some question on DPSP, now you want to criticize DPSP. Anything you can say DPSP from Hobbesian term, when we look through Hobbesian lens, it is nothing but covenants without swords are nothing but words. So that's why we say that when I do topics, it's not that I'm only doing that topic in a silo. I'm also integrating the topic with other parts of the syllabus where I can think and I can link. Because that will make me more organically write answers, organically think answers. When we do democracy, theories of democracy, it's not just what is the theories. I can look at democracy at global level also, democracy at gunpoint, democracy is a way of life. Or this debate of Amartya Sen and Liu Kuan, democracy and development. Or Farid Zakaria, what he says, illiberal democracy. Many ideas I can link. Post-democracy. He's a British sociologist. Colin Couch or something is his name. He says that we have entered post-democracy era. Means only elections are happening, democratic values are on decline. So we are just a procedural democracy, not democracy at substantiate level. So holistically I'll read. I'm not going to just read what are the theories of democracy, because that is what the exam is about. It's not working in silos. Got a point? Got an idea that how we are going to do it? So one, you have to maintain a separate notebook for answer writing, because see, whatever notes you have, that you will have, you read your own notes. Okay, what you can do is that only any value addition, what you feel when I discuss in class, that you can add it into your notes if you feel it is needed. Don't unnecessarily try to add everything. Okay, you are maintaining a notebook, one to write answers every day on the topic. So what we will do, we are theoretically solving most of the PYQs and the probable thematic questions. By end of the day, what you can write in exam is not more than 150 words or 300. So your note should be also very crisp, very short, not detailed and all. See, to give you an example, okay. If I'll tell you my notes on power at fingertips. What is there in my notes, how I have made my notes, it is there in my mind as a blueprint. Just as an example, I'll tell you. My notes of power. Power. Definition. Robert Dahl. Ability to exercise influence over others. One more definition, because here power is seen in terms of influence. Other definition of power, Max Weber. He says that power is when you have monopoly over exercising coercive force over others by creating severe prospects of sanctions to get their compliance. Max Weber, by heart it. By heart it, read my notes multiple times. This was the case because when I prepared, I have read. I've been teaching from 7 years. I know. But there's nothing, if you revise multiple times, you'll retain it. Then, see, don't read it in a very structured way. Just recall whatever we can think about power. It should be there in my fingertips. Okay. Next, I'll also think about Steve Lukes, who speaks about power from 3 perspectives. Power as a decision-making process. Power as a agenda-setting process. Power as a thought-controlling process. See, I know in detail what do you mean by decision making process thought, because I've already read and revised. Decision making process means this perspective, look at who is the decision maker, he is powerful. What is the agenda setting process? It's not the decision maker, it is the person who is setting the agenda, the invisible hand. Usually the Marxist perspective says that. What is power as a thought controlling mode? What Gramsci said, power can be also exercised through ideological control. These are the three perspectives. Then, class perspective of power. That is nothing but Marxist perspective of power. Marx, Engels, Lenin, okay, Gramsci. I know what to write. Okay, so what does Marx say? Marx says that the so-called executive power is nothing but the organized power of the bourgeois that is exercised over the proletariat. Summary I know. Class perspective of power. They say what gives you power? Control over the mode of production. So according to Marxists, political power is dependent on economic power. Those who exercise economic power are those who control political power. But Gramsci brings a small change. He says that power does not have only economic foundations to it, power also has cultural forces to it. That is where he speaks about hegemony. Done and dusted. This much I know to write an answer. I'll write sentences in the answer when I write. Then elitist theory of power. Simple. Crux. Elites exercise power over masses. Who are the scholars? C.W. Mills, Pareto, Mosca, Robert Michels. Iron law of oligarchy. Circulation of elites. Lions and foxes. Or what Pareto says, the history, what is it? It is, what does he exactly say? Graveyard. All history is about the graveyard of aristocracies. Simple. Now, they might, I'll also know what is the difference between elitist theory and class perspective. Both believe that power is exercised by one section or other section. Both believe that society is divided into two sections. Both believe that only one section has access to power. But difference here that here, what gives the access of power to the class or the bourgeois? That is the mode of production. Here they say it is natural. It is based on your personality. That is where Robert Mitchell says, elites are those people who have leadership qualities, who have courage, who are not averse to decision making, whereas masses are apathetic, indolent, slavish. Simple. CW means power elite. His analysis of American society, etc. Bombing of Hiroshima, Nagasaki was not an American decision, it was the decision of the elites who took part. That is the military bureaucracy and the American, what do you call that, capitalist class. Next theory of power, that is the feminist or gender perspective. Same thing. They say it is nothing but personal is political. Why personal is political? Carol Henich. The reason is that power only does not operate in public sphere. Power also operates in personal sphere. Example: marriage is a power structured relation between man and woman. Simple. Rest I can explain that how men exercise power over women. I can give a lot of examples. How in country like India, marital rape is not yet criminalized. How state reflects the power parity or power domination of men. Simple. But what is one common thing between class perspective, feminist perspective that is different from elitist perspective? Elites believe that this is natural and it's functional, there is no need to change. But both class perspective and feminism, this can be changed. But way they can change, for radical feminists, it's destroying patriarchy. For socialist feminists, the women movement should merge with the class movements. For liberals, it is more about increasing women's representation in state, etc. I mean, you read anything else, but this should be the summary that should be in your head. Pluralist perspective of power. Robert Dahl, polyarchy. Charles Lindblom, deformed polyarchy. Rest I know to write. Examples also. Then, constructive theory of power. Hannah Arendt. She completely given a different picture of power. All these theories are speaking about power over. She's speaking about power to the people. Simple, you read high and theory of power. Same thing, power is sui generis. Power is people acting in concert. Power belongs to public realm. Authority belongs to the state. Power is constructive. Violence is destructive. Authority always works on violence. Simple. McPherson. Developmental power. He says two types of power, extractive power, developmental power. Extractive power when you use other abilities to achieve your goal, when you use your own abilities to achieve your goals. So he had criticized the capitalist systems that they promote extractive power. Gandhi, power as concentric circles. Same thing, power in terms of empowerment. Power is the ability of all to resist authority. Then you have Foucault, postmodernist perspective of power. Power is a discourse. You should not understand power through meta-narratives. Power is everywhere. Power is like blood that flows through capillaries. Knowledge is power. Biopower, discipline, governmentality. Bear in mind, I'm not explaining, but maybe when we do power, I'll explain. But I'm telling this is what is in my head when I think about the ideas of power. Point. Then French and Raven, basis of power. They speak out 6 bases of power: legitimate, referent, coercive, expertise, information, and one more thing they say. Referent, coercive, information, legitimate. There's one more idea. There are 6 bases of power they speak out. What are the 6 foundations of power? This was also asked in the exam. Comment on basis of power. Then I'll also link IR paper. Hard power, soft power, smart power. We can also link here the idea of hegemony. We can also link here, okay, now what is authority? Difference between authority and power. Legitimized power is called as authority according to Max Weber. There are 3 types of authority: traditional, charismatic, legal, rational. Then you can speak about legitimacy. What are the different theories of legitimacy? There is divine rights, social contract. There is Rousseau, who speaks about people's participation. Marx denies the idea of legitimacy itself. And there is Montesquieu, who speaks about constitutionalism, civil rights as a basis of legitimacy. So once I've read the topic and power, legitimacy and authority, this is there in my notes, this is in my head. Whatever question comes in the exam, using this knowledge, I will write an answer. I'm not telling you I'm writing the answer this way. Using this knowledge, whatever they give in the exam as a question, I'm going to write. They might give in the exam question, surprise question. Marriage is a power structured relation between husband and wife, or marriage is a power structure, is a contract where one gender is exercising control over the other gender. Comment. Now you can't tell, so where it is there in my notes, it is not there in my notes. No, not required to be there in notes, I'll write. So if you look at Engels in his work, The Origin of Family, Private Property and State, he criticized the institution of marriage. He told the institution of marriage has led to monogamy. This emergence of monogamy has made women a property of a husband. This has led to the historic defeat of the female sex. Marriage has led to the emergence of the male identification of the future generations. Then I am going to bring the perspectives of how through marriage women are serving what you can say care economy, where their work is not valued. It is not part of GDP calculations. In many third world countries in that regard, or post-colonial countries, you can say domestic violence has been institutionalized in the name of marriage. Why? Because God, husband is equated with the status of God. Husband commands, wife obeys. In countries like India, marital rape is not even recognized as a crime. Yeah, man, this is more of a sociological question. But still, if it asked in political science, still I can write how marriage is a power structured relation or a contract where one gender is exercising control over the other gender. I need to give examples, I need to give arguments. Got an idea? So this is what I mean by short notes. Short note means not lengthy notes and all. It might be there in your book, etc. But you need to summarize and crisp to this extent. When you are able to summarize and crisp, if you have read that multiple times or if you know that crux of the theory. See, logically think, you might have written out Plato 80 pages. But in exam, you are not going to write a Plato question more than 350 words maximum. So even if you have read 80 pages, if you don't know the crux of Plato's ideas, you can't write an effective answer. You understood? Basic idea or basic approach of how to go about. And that's why I told, if you are a person you have not read political science, then this course is not going to help. Not done your foundation course, don't know the basics only. Then this will be a fast paced. So this is mainly designed for whom? Those who have completed their foundation course, who wants to summarize their idea of approaches, or those who are going to write mains now in the upcoming, in 2 months time, largely useful for them. Understood? Got a clear cut idea that what we'll be doing in part of the course. Similarly for online students, you have any doubt regarding how we are going to approach? Okay then. Now we will come to the starting part. We'll start with the syllabus now. Okay. So how will be starting? I'll be starting with paper 1, part A. Same. We'll go through the paper 1, part A. So in between, if you feel that you want to do some other paper, like you say that, no sir, after paper 1, part A, we'll do paper 2, part A. That can be also done based on requirement. But usually I'll go with paper 1, part A, paper 1, part B, paper 2, part A, paper 2, part B. Okay. So I'll roughly need around 5 days or 4 days to complete one part of the syllabus. What we told now, what is the core idea, what we discuss, writing answers, discussing a lot of PYQs. Okay. So if you open your syllabus in that, the first part, what is given is we'll be starting with the Western political thought. Western political thought. So under Western political thought, you have a lot of scholars. That is what? Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, then you have PSIR, Marx, okay, then you have Gramsci, then you have Hannah Arendt, right? So obviously now in this part, like I'll also have to look at how much effort I have to put in and how much marks are at stake. So this has both the direct and indirect benefit. Means question, it's not only about Plato or Hannah Arendt. Even if I know about Hannah Arendt's ideas, I can link at many places. Democracy, power, etc. Gramsci I can link at many places. Marx I can link at many places. Okay. So you need to understand, question can come here 2 ways. One direct, the other applied. Means the way I need to link what I've read in other parts of the question. So okay, what do I mean by that? Now the other topic what we have is justice. So let us think this year they give a question, justice in political theory is a dynamic idea, comment. So I might use my knowledge, what I read about Plato, to tell during Greek times what was the idea of justice, how that changed, under the Western, what you can say, liberal ideas. For Bentham, it was more in terms of utilitarianism. For Marx, it was largely in terms of social justice. For Rawls, what was the idea? So, elder justice is a very dynamic idea. I'll explain what I am told. You can use these scholars also directly or indirectly. So, knowing them has advantage. Not only from the point of view question will come on them, you can also use the ideas what you read here in different parts of your syllabus. So now to start with Western political thought, first we will not directly go into Plato. First let us look at the overall features of, because there is a saying that what Professor Moyer, he says, Professor Moyer says, the beginning or the source of the Western political thought should be credited to the rationalism of the Greek mind. Beginning or the source of Western political thought, it should be what? Credited to the rationalism of the Greek mind. Meaning, the Greeks have had a huge impact on what? The Western political thought. That is why there is this quote, what is say that the entire Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. Now this itself can come as a question. They might ask comment. So what do I write in my answer? In my answer, basically I have to write about how ideas of Plato, how ideas of Aristotle have shaped the evolution of Western political thought. So in my answer, I have to give examples. In my answer, I have to give connections. That how like Aristotle's idea has contributed to the emergence of the constitutional form of government. How Plato's methodology of dialectics, it has been also borrowed by other scholars into the field of Western political thought. Or you can say feminism roots back to first Plato, who largely spoke about what? That even women should be given political power. So we can say that Greeks to a larger extent have shaped, or what we can say is the cradle of the emergence of the Western political way. Be it Hannah Arendt, she's been influenced by Aristotle's civic republicanism. Point. Be it Marx, he's based his entire theory on criticizing Plato's as an idealism. He has brought the school of materialism. You are getting the point. Question can give this way also. So here it's all about how do I articulate. So what you took down as a quote, that can come as a question in exam. The entire Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. So for this question, I will use Professor Moyer's as the introduction. Then I am going to explain what? Explain how ideas of Plato and how ideas of Aristotle has shaped the origin of Western political thought through examples and through connections. Got an idea how to write this? Because this will write later as an answer, but I need you to get an idea. So here, the beginning, what I have to know, the Greek political thought, because the Greek political thought has a connection to Western political thought. Now since here, like most of you, I think most of you have done your foundational course, right? Most of you are thorough with it. So now what are the features of the Greek political thought? Okay, take down as a question. Take down this as a question. Discuss the features. Discuss the features of Greek political thought. Okay, 15 marks you need to write. Okay, Praveen has that I have not done my foundation course, but I have read political science multiple times. I have an understanding of PSIR, but will coursework. Yeah, if you have read political science multiple times, you have completed one reading of political science, whether with coaching or without coaching, then it can help. But if you have not read political science at all, see now what will happen for some new person, when I speak out Greek political, I have not explained, right, what is Greece, where did it attend, on the assumption that you have read it. But my job is now make you think and produce points here. Okay, so this is the question. Now for time now, because this is the first question what we are approaching, forget about time limit and all. Don't get tensed and think how you have to write in 7 minutes. Let us think rationally and clearly. For any kind of answer writing, first important is always to have a good introduction. I'm not telling catchy introduction, it should be a good, relevant introduction. So what will be your introduction that you can write for this question? So online students also can type your introduction. Offline students can tell what will be your introduction. The question is what? Discuss the features of Greek political thought. Tell, you don't feel shy, tell Sophists and Socrates. Hmm. Hmm. See, I want an introduction. I don't want to go into Socrates or Sophists. No, okay. One basic introduction you told. Plato and Aristotle are the foundations of the Greek political ideas. Second way, how you can write an introduction, because I'm not saying there's only one way to write an introduction, you have multiple ways. Renaissance. What will you write? I want a sentence. One, you can say, Greece is considered to be the cradle of the emergence of Western political ideas. Take down that as an introduction. Greece. So here is who said this? I only said, you only said. UPSC has never told you have to always write somebody who has said. In a mind, you can write in some cases, like when they ask systems approach, you can say according to David Easton, politics is authoritative set of allocation of values. You can write. But here I can write my own definition. Greece is considered as the cradle for what? Emergence of Western political ideas. Okay. Then what will you write? Then what you can write? The point what he told now. What? The Greek political thought can be understood through ideas of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, who form the foundation of it. Because we are not telling only these are the three people, there are many other Greek scholars, but these are the three pillars. Okay, so take on. The Greek political thought can be understood through the political ideas of whom? Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Got it? Now introduction is enough. Now let me come directly to the point. No, why? Because I don't need to beat around bushes. When you need to beat around, when you don't know, then you will beat around bushes. So now I'll see some people have doubts that what, sir, can we write point format or should we write only paragraph format? You can mix both. Because nowhere UPSC has said you should write only in paragraph format. It depends upon the question. So this is a question we are discussing about features. Features meaning what? Characteristics. There are two ways of people will write. Some people what they will do, they'll first write Plato's ideas, they will write Socrates' ideas, they will write Aristotle ideas, and then they'll look, these are the features. you need to commonly identify, commonly define what were their characteristics. So now I'll give a subheading. What is the subheading? Features of Greek political thought. Features of Greek political thought. For this question, I am going to use point format because I want to write more number of points. If there is some question like political science is a never-ending debate between scholars, comment. This I can't write in a point format. It doesn't make sense if I write in a point format. But if there is a question, critically analyze India's nuclear doctrine, I'll use a mixture of both. When I explain India's nuclear doctrine, I'll give it in point. Then I'll go into the analysis. Understood? So here I'm going to write the features. So tell me what are the features of the Greek political thought. So as I told, I don't want you telling Plato separately, Aristotle separately. I want holistically for you to tell. Okay, Anchal Avesthi said Greek political thought has its origin in writings of Plato and Aristotle, laying down the foundation of Western political thought. Good. That also you can write as an introduction. Fair enough. Okay. State is given importance. Okay. Then. Okay. One more point. What he told. Democracy is not so much favored among the Greek political ideas, or they see democracy as not an ideal government. See, many times what happens in political science, articulation is also important. The subject is like that. Political science, sociology, these are all subject. It also depends on the flair of your writing. You can also say democracy is not respected in Greece. Also we are saying that Greeks do not consider democracy as an ideal form of government. Okay, fair point. The democracy is not ideal. Okay, they emphasize a lot on state. Then you can say there was a mixture of idealism and even to a certain extent practical, because sophists were practical, Aristotle was practical, Socrates and Plato were too idealistic. You can say that Greek political thought had both streams of what idealism emphasized by Plato and Socrates, and you have other is that Aristotle, and you have sophists who are a bit practical to the extent. Then no, you had Plato, no, who had Plato spoken about women getting this thing. Okay, you had Chidanand who says that normatism was a key aspect of Greek political thought. Nandini is also correct. State as a natural institution. Very good that you can say. State as a natural institution. Correct, many are giving. So you can also say for Greeks or Greek political thought, it is an exclusively political treatise. They didn't mix spiritualism, religion into politics. For Greeks, they did not separate politics and ethics. That is what I think one of the person told. Normativism was essence to it. For the Greek political thought, they did not believe in the idea that equality is a natural principle, because they believed that inequality was natural. What Aristotle said, from the hour of birth, some are born to rule, others are born to serve. For Greeks, political thoughts, political ideas did not stress more on rights. There is no idea of rights. They stress more on duty. That what duty you perform. The Greeks believed that state, when you say natural institution, they also believed that there is no contradiction between the individual and the state, because individual or state is nothing but individual writ large. You can largely say that these were the core characteristics of what the Greek political thought. They emphasized on dialectics, the way to arrive at truth. They gave a lot of significance to reason. They did not consider democracy as an ideal form of government. Okay, point. But you can write, it's a 15 marker question. Easily you can write 7-8 points. If it's a 10 marker question, I will end up with 5 points. But since it's a 15 marker question, I can write. Then what I will write towards the end? The features I described. These are the features of Greek political thought. And you can say, as Lusky said, every political thinker is a child of his times, so were the Greek political ideas. It was an outcome of the social forces and interplay or the conditions of those times. And the Greek political scholars, Greek political thinkers have to be credited for what? Being the foundation of the Western political thought, and they've shaped the Western political thought. As we say that even the harshest critics, what are there? For example, you have Karl Popper, who says that the entire Western political thought is either Platonic or anti-Platonic. It is never non-Platonic. So that is how you would end your answer. I am telling option, you can end your answer by one more way also, by just telling out how Greeks have contributed to emergence of Western political ideas. So here, more importantly, I need to address the demand of the question. I have addressed the demand of the question. Discuss the features of Greek political thought. That's why I told here, please don't write like first write about Plato's ideas, then write about Aristotle's ideas, then write about Socrates' ideas. They are not asking you to write their ideas. They are asking holistically, how do you understand the Greek political thought? Any doubt in this question? So understood what is the content here. So this content means we'll be also uploading the class notes in the portal. So we'll be giving you access to our class notes also. So there you have features of Greek political thought. You can make a note of it, or now only, as I told now, if you're a person who have read, you can read. One is what? Exclusive political treatise. State as a natural institution. Third is what? Democracy is not an ideal form of government. Fourth, they emphasized on duties rather than rights. Fifth, they believe that inequality is a natural principle. Or you can say equality is not a natural principle. Or sixth, they emphasized on reason. Seventh, in that regard, dialectics. Get a point? So these are the things that what you can say are the core features of Greek political ideas. And then you conclude your answer by saying that what? As Lusky said, that every political thinker is a child of his time. So was the Greek political ideas were also shaped by the conditions in Athens and Sparta at that particular point of time. You can say, if you want, you can say that. See, there is no one way of writing a conclusion. That's why I told. It's always option. One, you can say that they've shaped, or you can say many of these ideas are still relevant today. That also you can bring an argument, but you cannot tell all the ideas are relevant, right? Because the idea of that equality is not a natural principle. So that is why I ended my answer with these things. Anchalas, they believe in expertise-based rule like philosopher or master, stress on need of political education, significant impact, Gandhi's Ramarajya. I won't get into impact of Ramarajya and all. So why in this question I will go into Ramarajya? Question is only asking about what are the features of Greek political thought. I am going to write these are the features. You get my point? So here what we are doing, we are revising through questions, not just trying to plainly read. So whatever we have read, we'll see that how we can integrate into the possible question, probable question, what questions have come. So even before going to Plato, if there is a probable question on Greek political thought. One more question, let us think, same on Greek political thought, one more question that can come in the exam. They have not asked, but maybe in a very old previous year question paper it was there. Take down the question as compare and contrast. Compare and contrast the Greek political thought, and the Indian political thought. Compare and contrast the Greek political thought and the Indian political thought. Again, let us take 15 marks. Got it? Understood the question? So now think and you tell me that what are the points that you will be able to generate. Same thing, you have to think about an introduction. Then you can think about the structure of your answer, that how will you structure your answer. Then you also have to think about what you are going to write as a conclusion. See what many mistakes what many people will do, right? Now especially during this phase, during the exam period, half of them will be stressed that what I have not read. They'll only spend more time on reading. That's why I told there's a difference between reading and thinking. Many people will also not write answers. Why not write answer? First I will read, then I will write answer. But have I read by now? What is compare and contrast the Greek political thought with the Indian political thought? This question has not come. I told it's a very old question, some back there. Now let us think this is a probable question that will come in this exam. I'm not telling it will come. It might not. But okay, let me look to answer it. But tell what is the introduction? Hmm. Hmm. It's a thing, write something out more substantial. So you can say that both India and Greece has a special place in the political history. Why? Because these two are considered as great civilizations for political ideas. Make it up, you don't always need to write somebody else. Saying both India and Greece have been what? Foundations of important political ideas. Greek has been the political ideas, as he told, of the West. India represents what? The political ideas of the East. That will be your introduction. Now let's come to the demand of the question. What is the demand of the question? Compare and contrast. Okay, here you have Vihari Kundula, who says that though separated by thousands of kilometers, both Greek and Indian political thought diverge aspects. Very good. It's a very good introduction, because if you actually look at in the Greek political thought and Indian political thought, there's a lot of overlap between the two ideas. Or Avasti, political thought is a systematic study of political ideas, and it has origins in the ancient Greek thought in the West and Indian political thought in the East. Remember, this is what we call as articulation. You have to be able to articulate. Same ideas. Now, even he told, not able to articulate. Many times, many people have the same ideas, but again, it depends upon, are we able to articulate it to a sentence? So, any of these introductions, you can write. Now, let's come to the demand. Compare and contrast. So, what will you write here? So, first I will divide my answer into two aspects. First, I am going to write what is the similarities. If I want, I can give a subheading also. Similarities or overlap between Indian political thought and the Greek political thought. What are the similarities? Correct. One similarity you can see in both political thought, they emphasized on duties. For example, Plato spoke about functional specialization. In ancient Hindu political thought, you find about Varna, Dharma. I'll give an example for the point what I mean. Then, what? So you can say in both extent, both believe that state is You can't say completely organic, because in Indian political thought you see it is semi-contractual, whereas in Greeks it is more natural. That you can write as a difference. But both believed that state is supreme. Both believe that an individual is subordinated to the state, should obey the state. They spoke about what? Absolute notion of political obligation, if you want to write technically. Then where they gave importance. So both political thoughts believed that equality is not a natural principle. Then both political thoughts are metaphysical. Why? Because in Hindu political thought, you do have the aspects of what? The transmigration of soul. The same ideas what Pythagoras read, which Plato came under the influence, even he spoke about transmigration of soul. So both political thought are what? They emphasize on metaphysical aspects. Then okay, Shidanand Koppad, he says that in both you can say that politics and ethics are not mutually exclusive. That is also correct, because you can say in both ideas they also spoke about not complete separation of ethics and politics, because under Buddhist political thought, maybe only under Kautilya in certain areas where he speaks about politics and ethics has to be separated, but even there he says even a ruler has Varna Dharma. Okay, so you can say that both believe that politics and ethics are not mutually exclusive. Okay. So enough, these many points you can write as what? Similarities. Now let us come to the differences. This will be second part of my answer. What is the divergence in both? So one you can say Greek political thought was an exclusively political treatise. But in Indian political thought, especially the Hindu political thought and the Buddhist political thought, you see that they are not exclusive political treatise, they are highly intermixed with religion and spirituality. Okay, it is highly mixed with what? Religion and spirituality. Then what will you write? Next difference. Correct, very good. So you can say in the West Greek political thought, there is continuity of ideas, where you can say here there is not so much continuity, or at some places you can say continuity has different meanings. The idea of dharma, it gets different meaning when you take the idea of dhamma in that regard at different point of time. Then what is the other difference you find in Greek political ideas and the Indian political thought? What was the other idea? In Greek political thought, they did provide opportunities for social mobility, be it Plato's education system. But in Indian political thought, largely it became based on what? Birth. Okay, birth determined your varna, and that determined your. So there was no degree of social mobility. Then what else you can write? So when you look at the Greek political thought, it largely emphasizes the modern ideas such as equality, justice, liberty. But when you look at the Indian political thought, it largely does not emphasize or the ideas such as it was not emphasizing equality, because for example in Plato he did speak about the idea of what, that equality between men and women when it comes to becoming the king or the queen. But in India, you can say largely it remained patriarchal. But second, you can say even people like Aristotle, he brought modern ideas such as classification of constitutions, a certain degree of empirical notion of politics. But in Indian political thought, largely you can say politics was not studied in terms of modern scientific lines. It was largely seen in lens of spirituality and religion. Then what else you can write? The other area of difference between Greek political thought and the Indian political thought. Hmm. 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 Okay, you can add that point. You can make it modern Indian political thought. See, but the problem here, what happens is that we can't take holistically like only one person's idea and say. We have to largely see what is the central feature of the Indian political thought and what is the central feature of the Greek political ideas. Okay, and largely when I say Indian political thought, largely we have to go into the aspect of Hindu political thought, the Buddhist political thought. So even if you look at Buddhist political thought and Greek political thought, there is a similarity. What is the similarity? Both consider who should become a ruler, a person who has high degree of knowledge, compassion, or etc. Even in Buddhist political thought, they emphasize on reason. Okay. So here we are looking at the difference. What is the difference between the two? Any other point of difference, what we can write between the Greeks and maybe the ancient Indians? So you can say in Indian political thought, there is a strong sense of the kingship. It is based on divine origin. But in Greek political thought, the idea of kingship, it is largely based on reason, knowledge, what the ruler possesses. Yeah, you can say laws are man-made, or you know what he said, the ordinance made by the knowledge of the philosopher king is more than the law or ordinance. But here you can say this strongly it was divine in origin. Then you write your conclusion as what? Can you say, in spite that point what he had written, that you can say, in spite of being separated by thousands of kilometers, we can say there has been a strong influence of the Hindu political ideas or the ancient Indian political ideas on Greece. Okay, so there you can give the example of how the idea of transmigration of soul, and what Pythagoras, who was a Greek, who took it to Greece, and then you can say Plato shaped his theory of soul on based on that particular idea. So that is what you can end as your conclusion, or you can write something that there are certain striking similarities between the both political ideas. So in this answer, you need to divide your answer based on what are the similarities and what are the differences. Got a point? So any kind of question that can come on Greek political thought, Greek political ideas. So these are the probable question or some previous year questions what has been asked in the exam, and this is how we can analyze and go about it. Okay, we look at more Indian political thought questions when you do that chapter, but here we are looking at largely Greek political thought and how we are comparing it. Got it? Any doubt here that how you can approach, what you need to know? So again what you did here, it's not about reading. What did you do here? It's more about thinking. You thought about it. You thought about, okay, what is similar, what is differences, and that's why I told, if you think, you will get points. Mains is not a reading, what we can say, part. Mains is more about thinking. There's a difference between reading and thinking. Reading gives you information. Thinking gives you how to link that information in the answer. So for most of your mains questions, just reading won't help. It also requires some degree of brainstorming, thinking. Why? Because now let us take tomorrow, in actual exam, they will give a question, relation between Indian political thought and Greek political thought. You will be in a better position to write the answer. Why? Because you have already solved it. You have already thought about it. Your introduction is ready. Your conclusion is ready. Key points, keywords are ready. All you have to do is that arrange it. There you don't need to write differences. You have to explain what is the relation, how they are similar, how these ideas have influenced. That you need to write. Got it? Anything which they ask on Greek political thought. Got it? So as I told, one more question what they can ask. The evolution of Western political thought is credited to the rationalism of the Greek mind. Comment. Same thing. Just write about how Greek political thought, Greek political ideas, ideas of Plato, Aristotle has shaped the evolution of Western political thought. So the question answer will be same, even if the question is what? The entire Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. Answer remains same. Any doubt? So let's go into Plato. Yeah. So as I said, Plato. Now first logically think how many questions can come in the exam and how much I need to know about this in exam. Right. So hardly or maximum one question can come on Plato. Direct. Indirectly you can use Plato in some of your arguments. So now that is why I told, if you are a person, let us think you are still reading 80 pages for Plato. Uneconomical. Why it is uneconomical? Let us say every page is around 100 words. If you are reading 80 pages, means you are reading 8,000 words. But in actual exam, you are writing 350 words. So obviously, there should be summary of what you have written. Maybe first time when you read, to understand you need it. Since now you have understood, you have to be able to summarize. So what are the basic things you will have to know in Plato? Simple. What are the works written by Plato? The Republic. Statesmen. And you have what? Laws. Important sources written by Plato. Okay, then you will know about what are the important key ideas given by Plato. What was Plato's main concern? Plato's main concern was establishing this ideal state. Why I am referring ideal state? Because Plato belongs to the school of idealism. It is all in Plato's head. It is all in Plato's mind. It's not in reality. So what made Plato think like this? Conditions in the city-state of Athens. Quick summary of what was problem with Athens: nepotism, favoritism. Athens lost the Peloponnesian War. Socrates was killed. All these impacted Plato. Plato started questioning. Plato wanted to bring a change. Why? Plato was an idealist. So Plato built his own world. Plato wanted to build an ideal state. What are the foundations of this ideal state, or how do we understand this ideal state? To understanding his other important ideas. Which are the important ideas we'll have to know? One is the theory of knowledge, right? So this is where I'll also link the other keyword, allegory of caves. Because see, in reality, for you to understand allegory of caves, basically it's like a story. What you understand, that is for what Plato has written to make people understand. But in exam, I can't write the story of allegory of caves. Three men are tied, their hands are tied, they're facing the cave. Summary, allegory of caves. Then also have to know his theory of soul. Right. Then you have to know about his idea of justice, because they're all logically connected. Classification of society is one aspect. Functional specialization. State is individual, state large. Justice is doing good for all. Justice is not a contract. Justice is naturally endowed in people's mind. Justice is not in the interest of the strong. Justice is not in the interest of the weak. Justice is in the interest of everyone. Justice is also based on functional specialization. Don't question the state. That is also justice. Perform your duties, what you are given. This is only Plato's idea of justice. Then you will have to link Plato's theory of education. Same again here, don't worry about you knowing 0 to 6, 6 to 18, 18 to 20, 20. That is only for study purpose. Simple. Why did he emphasize on education? What was the purpose of his education? That's what you have to know. Because answer, that is what we are going to write when we look at previous year questions. What has come. Then you have to know about communism of wives and property. What is the idea here? Simple, na? The ruling class and the soldier class cannot marry, cannot have private property. They have to live in what you can say, hostels. Whereas the producer class, they are entitled to free. But producer class cannot have political power. Those who have political power cannot have economic power, because he told that economic power corrupts those who have political power. So that was his idea. And then you will also, means this ideal state is nothing but philosopher king. This is the making of the philosopher king. Also you have to know his views on laws. What he says, no law or ordinance is mightier than the knowledge of the philosopher king. That is the another core idea of Plato. So here, if you take last year's paper, they have given something called as theory of forms. Nothing but theory of knowledge. Same thing, it's nothing different. The same answer what you write for theory of knowledge is nothing but theory of forms. It's not a new theory. Basic what he will tell matter is not real, the form is real. Basically, to understand this form, it belongs to the world of ideas, it does not belong to the world of matter. For that you need to have reason. And only those souls where reason is dominant, where see the kingdom of God, only they will be able to understand form. Form does not have permanence. Form does not have a shape. Form basically is an idea. So he says, if you, just by looking at this is not, means you should not just looking as a, because there are so many chairs. Chairs can be like this also. This is also a chair. Both shapes are different. You are understanding? This is also chair. That the chair what you are sitting in is also chair. but both chair are not alike. So he says that what you need to understand the idea of a chair. What is the purpose of a chair? That is the reality. Shadow is what is it? Reality is the shadow of ideas. No, what is it? No, that statement he says now. Reality is shadow of ideas. Means what you see in the material world, that is not the reality. That is what he explains in the allegory of caves. So it is very important to understand the form. That is only theory of form of caves. Same thing they was. So you need to know about his views on laws. No law is ordained is mightier than the knowledge of philosopher king. Apart from all this, what you will have to know? You have to know criticism of critic given by whom? Aristotle. Then you will have to know criticism brought by Karl Popper. Criticism brought by feminists such as Susan Molar Ockin, who calls Plato as what? A reluctant feminist. Enough, these three names if you know. Then there are some people who have praised Plato, Whitehead, Rousseau. Just know what they have told. Then you have to know a relation between Aristotle and Plato. There's a saying that Aristotle's best state is Plato's what? Second best state. Plato's second best state is given in his work Laws, where he did change certain ideas. He became a bit more practical. Why? Because now Plato had become old. He became more mature. Young Plato was very radical. These are the things just I know for Plato. What I am telling I know on the assumption that you have read all this. Now we have to look at questions, what they've asked in the exam. Now I'll like to how to use this knowledge to answer the questions. So let us take, I'll give you one question and I want you to think at what you will write as the answer. Then I'll discuss the answer. Take the question as Plato's communism . Plato's communism. Plato's communism. See, I won't be taking some easy questions, I'll be taking more difficult questions which are more applied by nature. So what if we take some easy questions also in between. Plato's communism is a supplementary machinery to reinforce or to give effect to and reinforce that spirit education is to create. That spirit, the education is to create. Nettleship. Comment. Let us take 20 marks has been given. See, one of the advantage of solving previous year question is that now this quote that is given by Nettleship, I can use this quote in other Plato's question as a viewpoint. Simple. They can ask this as a question, I can use this as a viewpoint in other questions when they ask about Plato's communism. I can use Nettleship's statement. So that's why I told you, if you solve a lot of questions only, you will get a lot of viewpoints. But I want you to decipher the question and I want you to tell what will you write as the answer to this question. See what here some people, what will happen is that, so what UPSC or the exam pattern they're doing, they're giving big lengthy sentences because they want to now understand whether the student is able to understand the question. Some people only say, okay, they've asked about communism, let me write whatever know about communism. No. First you need to understand the demand of the question. Once you understand the demand of the question, then you will know what to write. If you fail to understand the demand of the question, then you won't be able to write the right answer. So tell me in a simple form, what is the demand of the question? See, always the key thing to write a good answer in any GS paper or optional paper is our ability to understand and comprehend what is the question that has been asked. And my understand is crystal clear. 90% of the time the answer will be also crystal clear. When my answer will be vague, when my answer will not be very good, then I myself have failed to understand what exactly they're asking. So online students also can give their interpretation of what exactly is the question. So Vihari Kundula, I think his interpretation is given correct. What he is told is correct, but I want you guys to do. That is not the question. See, read the question again. Plato's communism is a supplementary machinery to give effect and reinforce that spirit of education is to create. Matlab, it's not first about communism, first about Plato gave or spoke about significance of, or what Rousseau says, Plato's Republic is a masterpiece or a treatise ever written on education. So why did Plato specify on education? That you need to link, because for him in his ideal world, it is only if a person who has reason, that is what he says, until philosophers becomes kings or kings learn the art of philosophy, world will never rest from evil. Because if our ruler has knowledge, then he'll know, he can understand the forms. If he understands the forms, he's not running behind material things such as money, power, etc. So he is what he knows how to rule more effectively. So to identify that who is that philosopher king, he has introduced his education system. Through this he'll identify in which soul reason is predominant. But however, Plato has also given another theory, that is what? Communism of wives and property. So they're telling it is a supplementary machinery. Now in my answer I have to tell, even in spite of stressing on education, why Plato is again bringing a supplementary machinery to make Athens great, that is communism of wives and property. So my answer I will tell why is that, because Plato was conscious of the fact that end of the day, the root cause of decline of Athens was not only the ignorance of the rulers, but it is also the weakness of the rulers. That was what? Family and private ownership of property. Because what Plato says, in every soul, there is an element of appetite. So that is why Plato did not want to take the risk of that even the most knowledgeable people can have weaknesses such as what? Family or appetite. And hence in order to nullify that, what he did, he brought the second layer of protection, that is communism of wives and property. That is why you can say the purpose of bringing communism of wives and property is to uphold what the spirit of education means, an ideal ruler. I am then going to write in my answer, nevertheless, these were all radical ideas and it was criticized by people like Aristotle. Aristotle told what? That family and private property are time-tested institution. By removing these features, he is going to destabilize the human society. Or third, Karl Popper, what he says, Plato's ideas leads toward creation of a state where individual is subordinated or sacrificed at the altars of the state. And we can say that though Plato was correct in his diagnosis, but his prescription were far worse than the disease. Hence, Plato's ideal ruler remained in his world of ideas. It did not become a reality. That is how I am going to end my answer. Got the point here? So, here what many people will do is that, that's what I will know, for many people, what they think is that answer writing is just a right answer, automatically my answer writing will improve. It's not the question. Why it is not the question? See, for some people, what their assessment will be that the crash course is, chumma, it's, we go through it. That is not the purpose of the course. The purpose of the course is that first one to write good answer, you have to. That is how the market works. How market works, people would have already taken foundation course. They will think that will be sufficient enough for me to write good answers. That I can't tell for everybody. There will be some people in the class smart enough to read from the sources, but it's not that everybody has that bent of mind of thinking, understanding how to understand the interrelation they're asking. So here the question is not only about theory of education. The question is not only about communism of vice and property. The question is about why did Plato, even after prescribing education, what was the necessity to bring a supplementary to it, that is communism of wives and property. I have to explain the reason. I should explain what was Plato's thinking. What is my explanation? The purpose of education was to identify the most knowledgeable ruler. Why not knowledgeable ruler? Because he told one of the root causes of decline of Athens was ignorant rulers. Why ignorant rulers? They ran behind material things. They didn't understand the world of ideas. For him, ideas are permanent. So he needs a ruler who has that kind of reason to understand the forms. So that is why he brought education system. That was the purpose of education system. So I'm going to summarize that what? For Plato, he said, unless philosophers become kings or kings learn the art of philosophy, the world will never rest from its evils. But in spite of this, he also used another idea of communism of wives and property. Now this I like why it is supplementary. They have given it is supplementary to safeguard the spirit that education is to create. So for Plato, he also was conscious of the fact that the ruler's weakness was not only ignorance, that was also nepotism and what you can say corruption. So he says nepotism is more harmful than corruption, is the root cause of corruption. Because he says end of the day, even in most soul where reason is dominant, still there is element of appetite. So he did not want to take the risk, and that is why what he did, he told those who belong to the ruling class will be denied private ownership of property or private families. That will make them more dedicated towards the cause of the state. And that will contribute to his idea, core idea. That is what? Creating an ideal state. Then I am going to bring a criticism. I'll write criticism. Even though they have not asked, I will write. Because the question is not what, the question is comment. But even though these ideas he has given, these ideas are not practical. Aristotle's criticism, Karl Popper's criticism. Conclusion, what I am going to write? Problem with Plato was that his diagnosis is correct, we can agree with it, but his prescription is far worse than the disease. And hence Plato's philosopher king remained in the world of idea. So I hope most of you got an idea that how to link and write this particular question. But as I told, this you will have to do it in exam at a quicker rate, quicker pace. So what you are learning here how to decipher the question, how to read the question, how to understand the question, and how to link what I have read. Because I am not going here and explaining what is communism of wives and property. That's what I told. I hope that most of you know. But if you are a person who does not know what is communism of wives and property, then this course will not be. If you are a person who don't know only what is communism of wives, what is theory of ideas. Some question will be there direct, that will take up when we will try to answer. But I expect you to know it. Any doubt here? One of the previous year question, how it has come. So let us take one more question to look at how one more question on Plato. Okay. Take down Plato's theory of education. Take down the question as Plato's theory of education. Theory of education is a logical result. Is a logical result of his conception of justice. A logical result of his conception of justice. Discuss. This is also a 2004 UPSC previous year question. Now I want you to tell how will you write. Okay. So basically the crux of the question is that there is a logical link between his theory of justice and his theory of education. Other meaning is that in order to bring his idea of justice into practice, he has prescribed the education system. My whole answer is about explaining what is the logical connection and can bring criticism also there. So basically what will be my introduction here? So I can introduce by writing, say that Plato, the father of political philosophy, in his book Republic, he largely speaks about creating an ideal state. Why? To free Athens from nepotism, favoritism, corruption. Now, then I am going to write what? After that, what will I write? What will you write that? So Plato's work Republic gives considerable importance to the idea of justice. Why? Because the theme or sub-theme or subtitle of Plato's work Republic is concerning justice. So now I need to explain here what is Plato's idea of justice. What is a core aspect of Plato's idea of justice? One of the core aspect of Plato's idea of justice is functional specialization. That I need to link. What is functional specialization? Theory of, I link it to now theory of soul. For Plato, every human has a soul. It is universal. And every soul has three elements: reason, appetite, and courage. But he says that what in every soul, all these elements are not equally distributed. Some souls, reason is dominant, they go on to form the ruling class. In those souls where the courage is dominant, they are the soldier class. In those souls where appetite is dominant, they are the soldier class. And he says that each class should do their work and that will lead to excellence. But Now, in order to bring this functional specialization, he is now linked or created this education system. Through his education system, he is going to identify that which component or which element is dominant in which human soul. And in his education system, you can write a bit that what that 0 to 6, 6 to 18, 18 to 20. So at each stage, there are going to be elimination. So those who get eliminated at the age of 18, they are going to be part of the producer class. At age of 20, they are going to be, military education. They are going to be other education, and those who get eliminated here, they are going to be part of the guardian class or the soldier class. And the remaining people will be allowed to complete the lifelong education. They are going to form the ruling class. Hence, we can say that to make Plato's idea of justice practical, Plato's education system is linked to it. It enforces the idea of functional specialization. But however, his idea of justice has been criticized from a point of view of modern times. One, the theory is metaphysical. There is no evidence of saying that both so. Second one, he also, what you can say, brings a classification of society into three classes, and he makes an individual subordinate to the state. And third, his education system is state-controlled education, where it is not designed at creating an empowered individual, but to create a subservient individual at the service of the state. But nevertheless, he did give importance to education to women. In his idea of justice, he allowed that even women can become rulers. And that is why even Rousseau calls Plato's Republic as one of the greatest treatises ever written on education. Largely, mainly what they look for is that, have you understood the question? So the crux of the question is that nothing but relation between his idea of justice and what? Education. So I hope most of you were able to effectively answer or effectively write. So any doubt here? Anything which you do not understand regarding Plato's question? So now I'll give a time limit in question. You have to write the next question within the given time. Means we'll put the stopwatch based on what is the question, for how many marks it has been asked. Based on that, you'll have to write. So this is a 10 marker question. So obviously you will get around what you can say uh, 7 minutes time to write. Okay, so take down the question as Plato as the first feminist. Comment. Plato as the first feminist. Comment. The time starts now. You get only 7 minutes to write the answer. We have last 3 minutes. Last 2 minutes. Last 60 seconds. Last 10 seconds. Time up. So obviously this is how you feel in the exam pressure, that you have to write an answer within 7 minutes. But it will be a sustained pressure. Why? Because here you will get time now to think or discuss. But in exam you have to be able to write this continuously for 3 hours. That's why we say that just writing and writing more effectively, there's a huge difference. Why? Because some people might have not practiced with time, or some people might have just randomly practiced. So what happens is that when you actually go in an exam, your efficiency will come down. Okay, so anyway, now in this question, that how do we address it? So question was what? Plato as the first feminist. The keyword is first feminist. So basically in my introduction, I am going to write something about feminism. I am going to say feminism is an idea that speaks about equality between men and women. However, according to some, even though this was a modern idea, some consider Plato to be one of the first feminists. Now I have to explain why, what are the reasons for it. So one of the argument, what I am going to bring here, that Plato in his work Republic, in that regard, he speaks about access to education. To whom? To women. Second aspect, Plato has also allowed women to hold political power, because he only does not speak about philosopher king, he also speaks about philosopher queen. Plato in his communism of wives has reduced the burden of women of domestic duties. Now the state will take care of it, they can focus more on their career. So hence some consider Plato as one of the first feminists. But however, now you have to write counterpoints. Susan Molar Okin. Susan Molar Okin. He considers Plato to be a reluctant feminist. Why? Because for Plato, women were not the end, but women were just the means to create the ideal state. Second one, you can bring Plato has used women as laboratory animals for his eugenic purpose, denying them of their motherhood. Third, you can say, according to some scholars, even before Plato, there was a Greek scholar called as Euripides who had promoted gender equality. So some deny even is not the first feminist. These ideas are even prior to Plato. The other argument what you can bring, Plato in his one more work called as Timaeus, he writes that those who are, what you can say, those who are wicked men, they'll be reborn as women in that regard. So this reflects Plato's what? Patriarchal mindset. Or the other argument you can also write that Plato in his work Republic, none of the characters are women, all characters are men. But nevertheless, one should not judge Plato on the ideas of modern times, because Plato's ideas were shaped by his times, and going by his times, there is no denying factor that when it comes to women and their political empowerment, Plato was way ahead of his ages. So that is what you can write. So as I told, maybe not so perfectly, because I do post-mortem, not this thing in the exam. But that's what I told, better preparation will enable you to write more effective answers in the exam. And as I told, writing an answer without time limit is different. Writing an answer with time limit is very different. And that is what we say, for you to succeed in the exam, you have to play by the rules of the game. So that's why I told, this is not just a knowledge-based exam, this is also a skill-based exam. And why you find only some people doing well in the exam? Because only few people would have prepared systematically. Only few people would have worked on what? The examination skills. Most of the people, what they would have done, just randomly take up some test series, just keep writing those tests without any yardstick or measurement, where I need to make improvement, where is the problem, is it my thinking, is it I'm not able to write within given time limit, am I able to think from so many perspectives, or is it the content? Got it? So that's why I told, if you have minimal content also, you can write it effectively. Some value addition you can do as we go. Means like some points which you didn't know, add it into your notes. Okay, but this is a repeated theme question that has been asked. It's luck if the same question comes in the exam. But you should be also ready to answer any kind of new themed question. So today we went a bit slow. Why? Because this was the first class. But tomorrow we'll pick up the pace. Because today we should have done Aristotle and Machiavelli also. But since this is the first class, we have gone for lesser time. So tomorrow we'll speed up the pace. So tomorrow, before going to Aristotle, we'll solve 2 more questions on Plato. I'll also give up, new theme question. But tomorrow you'll have to write within given time period. And you can also revise once Plato, if you have not revised once. Also revise Aristotle, revise Machiavelli, revise the entire Western political thought. In tomorrow's class, we'll take up Machiavelli, Aristotle, because these are all small scholars. Even what you can say, Hobbes, we'll try to take it up. You got an understanding that how the program has been designed and how we'll be going through it. So we'll be writing a lot of PYQs as part of the program. Got it? And some questions you'll have to write within timer, with time, given time. So I hope for the online students also it was crystal clear that what was the idea here. Okay. So let's meet again tomorrow. Same time, it will be 2:30 to 5:30. But today we'll be ending it a bit quicker. But tomorrow it will be 2:30 to 5:30. Got it? So any other doubt? Understand? So revise again Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, and don't do detailed revision. Make very, very short notes. Don't have big page notes. It should be very crisp and short based on PYQs. So tomorrow we'll take up some other questions on Plato, then we'll go quickly into Aristotle and Machiavelli.